All right? So, the Christian interpreters are partly right, the Jewish interpreters are partly right. Okay, and we'll see what happens here is if we follow the Jewish interpreters, then Abraham would be born when Terah was 70. But the Jewish interpreters also admit, which is true, that Shem was born when Noah was 502 and not 500. So we have a situation of 3 sons being listed. We're not sure which one is the firstborn. It turns out that Japheth was the firstborn when Noah was 500, and that Shem was born later when he was 502. Okay?
How do we know that?
Or 501. That you have to work that out of the internal chronology. Okay? And we're not going to dive into that. This is an overview. So I'm giving you a reason why this 400 years is this way here. This is a long era of Scripture. Now, if you follow the Christian opinion, you add 5 years, because they date the 430 years from the departure from Haran, implying that it took less than a year to get, that there was less than a year between the departure from Ur and the departure from Haran. So that actually has the effect of adding 5 years to the chronology. The Jewish interpreters err in the birth of Abraham by 60 years. So that has the effect of subtracting 60 years from the chronology. Okay. What one camp errs, the other camp has correct. All right. So when we take the correct parts for both camps, we'll find, and the consequence of this error is if you look at the synchronized Jubilee cycles, when you jump over this 400 years, then the Jubilee cycles drop out of synchronization with the entry into the land. If you follow the Jewish opinion, it drops out of synchronization. You follow the Christian opinion, that falls out of synchronization. Once you take the pluses from both sides and you put them together, then they resynchronize. All right? Okay. Now, let's move along the chart here. Okay, I have the Exodus here at the end of the 400 years. And we have a 40-year period with a W there, that stands for wilderness. And then I have a bar going up to the synchronized Jubilee cycle line. That says cycles begin. Okay? And what this dot is showing here is the cycles beginning here when they entered into the land. That synchronizes with creation way over here. And then I have another dot over here under Othniel. The first Jubilee celebrated in the land would have fallen there in Othniel's judgeship. So that's why there's a black dot there. All right? And I might as well continue on this theme. If we go down to the next dot, we'll see that there's a bar going up from King Saul here. Do you see that? A gold bar going up. And making a dot on the synchronized Jubilee cycle. Okay, and that represents the second year of Saul. All right, the scripture says in 1 Samuel, let's look that up. Said, now it stands to reason the cycle should begin when they enter the land. Okay, that's based on Leviticus 25. Let's see. Speak unto the people of Israel, say to them, when you come into the land that I give you, the land shall keep a Sabbath to Yahweh. So when you come into the land, all right, well, they came into the land when they crossed the Jordan River. So the first year, the first agricultural year after that would be starting in the fall, all right. The year that they actually entered was a sabbatical year. The land will actually, it's in the perfect, the land will have kept a Sabbath. So that's when we start counting from. Creation, it stands to reason we start counting from creation, we start counting from entry into the land. That synchronizes. Okay. For the second year of Saul, we have 1 Samuel 13:1. Okay, Saul lived for 1 year and then became king. And when he had reigned 2 years over Israel, which would be the second year of his reign, Saul chose 3,000 men of Israel. 2,000 were with Saul in Michmash and in the hill country of Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan in Gibeah of Benjamin. The rest of the people he sent home, every man to his tent. Jonathan defeated the garrison of the Philistines that was in Geba, and the Philistines heard of it. And Saul blew the trumpet throughout all the land, saying, "Let the Hebrews hear." Okay, and Saul blew the trumpet throughout all the land, saying, "The Hebrews hear." If we look in Leviticus 25:9, then you shall sound the loud trumpet on the 10th day of the 7th month, on the day of atonement. You shall sound the trumpet throughout all your land. Okay, so this is what we call connecting one scripture to another by allusion. By using the same phrase, he's telling us, we could call it a cipher. The chronicler of the book of Samuel is telling us that the second year of Saul is the Jubilee. Okay, and this actually does synchronize. When you work out the chronology, it actually synchronizes with the Jubilee of Othniel and going all the way back to creation.
That's marvelous.
Okay. Now, I didn't know this until I had worked out all the other chronology first. I saw the allusion in Scripture and I said, that sounds like a Jubilee. And so then I went and checked the chronology. And it was already in place. I just never noticed it. Okay, now this is up here on the chartboard, so we should notice a couple other points here. Alright, during the reign of the kings, do you see this black bar here?
Oh, yes.
Okay, that represents a sabbatical year. It represents the third year of Jehoshaphat, actually. Okay, in the third year of Jehoshaphat, he sent out priests and Levites to teach the Israelites the law. Okay, this sounds like it correlates with the Jubilee again, because, I mean the sabbatical year, not the Jubilee in this case, just the sabbatical year, which synchronizes with the other sabbatical years, which falls into the Jubilee system. In the sabbatical year, at the Feast of Tabernacles, they were supposed to read the law to all the people. All the people were supposed to stand and listen. So, it sounds like a good follow-up would be to send priests and Levites out to teach everybody the law. Or maybe the people who didn't attend the feast, because really the people that were supposed to attend the feast were what? All the men. Okay? So there were still a lot of people to teach the law. Okay? This one's a little more tenuous, but it matches. Alright, then, if you look over here in Hezekiah, you see the dot here on the synchronized Jubilee cycle. Okay, that represents the 15th and 16th years of Hezekiah. Okay, and they were told, this passage is in, let's see. And this shall be a sign for you. This is the prophet Isaiah relaying a message to Hezekiah about Sennacherib, because Sennacherib invaded Judea in Hezekiah's 14th year. Okay, and besieged all of his cities and took them, except for Jerusalem. Okay, now what does the enemy do to your crops when they invade? They demolish them all, so that, especially before they leave, especially if they don't succeed. Okay. And they were about to take Jerusalem, okay? So this is what the king is told. And this shall be a sign for you. This year eat what grows of itself, or this year the aftergrowth. And in the second year what springs of the same. Then in the third year sow and reap and plant vineyards and eat their fruit. And it's also repeated in Isaiah 37.
And the reason why for 2 years they had to eat, they had only available what would grow of itself, because the enemy conquerors had destroyed all their crops, and wouldn't let them plant again the next year, I presume.
Okay, and this is an allusion to Leviticus 25:11. That 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. In it you shall neither sow nor reap what grows of itself, nor gather grapes, nor reap, which means reap to sell the market. Okay, for it's a year of jubilee; it shall be holy to you. You may eat the produce of the field. Okay, so that's the aftergrowth. So they were to have it for foods for themselves, for the alien and the poor, and anybody who hadn't stored up food was allowed to just eat out of eat out of hand in the year of Jubilee. So this Jubilee sabbatical cycle, this has long, in the reign of Hezekiah, has long been recognized as an allusion to a sabbatical and a Jubilee year. Okay, and then the third year is the second year of the cycle, which is after a Jubilee, but will be the first year that they could sow new crops in and eat them. What hasn't been recognized by chronologers or spotted is the Jubilee in the year of Saul, okay, and also hasn't been achieved by them ever has been synchronizing it with Joseph or creation because of the mistakes they made, right? Now, that's all I have for Jubilees right now. There's actually, I have what? That's 1, 2, 3. 3 other possible Jubilee synchronisms, but that's beyond the scope of this overview. Right? Now let's look at the period from Mount Sinai to the 4th year of Solomon.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If there's 4 possible Jubilee synchronisms altogether, why do you prefer this one?
Why did I put these in here?
Why would you prefer this one over the others?
What others are you thinking about?
You said there were 3 other possible synchronisms.
Oh, I didn't mean different on different cycles. I meant there's 3 other occasions where it's a Jubilee. I can mention one is the fall of Nineveh that represents the great trumpet. Okay, that was in the year of Jubilee. Another is the end of Nebuchadnezzar's 7 years of madness. He starts talking about the end of days. Okay, a prophetical Jubilee, but that also was the year of Jubilee at the end of his reign in his 43rd year. So that's 2 more. And then another Jubilee is when David brought the ark to Jerusalem. The second time he tried to bring the ark to Jerusalem when he actually succeeded. That was a Jubilee, and he was blowing trumpets and doing Jubilee type stuff when that happened. Mm-hmm. But those allusions aren't as strong as, this is probably the strongest with Hezekiah, all right? And this is like the 3rd day theme in Scripture. When you see one 3rd day thing that seems to match up with Yeshua's death and resurrection, then you say, okay, it matches, but are you really convinced that this is an objective message? Well, no. But after you see a whole bunch of 3rd days, you see it in Genesis 22, you see it with the baker and the wine taster, you see it with Exodus 19, you see it in Hosea, and you see it a bunch of other places. You see it, then you see that there's an objective message coming through every time the 3rd day is mentioned. All right. Well, it's like this with the Jubilee. Okay, you see one allusion to the Jubilee, and you say, "Huh, nice interpretation." But then you see another one, and then you see it all synchronizes, and another one. Then you say there's actually an objective message coming through here. Objective meaning that we've gone from the realm of opinion or speculation to the realm of the author actually intended to make these connections. Okay? All right. So that's this line called synchronized Jubilees. All right. Let's go back to Mount Sinai where I have 2 other lines here. All right. Now,
Where's Mount Sinai?
the last chronologer to produce, Usher produced a complete chronology going back to the creation of the world. 4004 BC. Okay, between Usher, known chronology, I can't speak for all of them, but the last one that really produced a complete chronology was Martin Ansey, going all the way back to creation. And his date for creation was 4124. Okay, my date in this chart of creation is 4139. So the difference is 15 years. Okay. What did Ansey do different than I did? Well, let me tell you what Ansey did. I won't, you have your charts, okay? I'm not going to put the chart back over there. What Ansey did was, first of all, he made the 5-year era I was talking about with the birth of Isaac. And Usher actually made this error too. So Ansi was just following in the footsteps of Usher. What Usher said was that Isaac became the seed of Abraham when he was 5 years old. When he was weaned, and Abraham had a feast for him. Okay? What does the scripture say? The scripture says that when Isaac was weaned, Abraham had a feast for him. It doesn't say how old he was. Okay? So Usher and Ansi both speculated that he was 5 years old. This is the traditional age of weaning. Okay? So they made an arbitrary decision to add 5 years to the chronology there and only consider Isaac 5 years old, or the seed when he was 5 years old. Okay, and the reason they had to do that is because they had to justify starting the 430 years when Abraham left Haran, rather than starting the 430 years when he left Ur, which is when the sojourn began. And there were 5 years between those 2 points. So that explains 5 years of Ansi's error, 15-year error. The other error is explained by this pink right here. Okay, Ansi correctly arranged all the chronology of the judges and the oppressions between the Exodus and the 4th year of Solomon, except for one detail. He completely omitted the second Philistine oppression of 20 years. Okay?
Why did he do that for?
Because he didn't read the text very carefully. Also because other chronologers neglected it. Alright? Other chronologers came up with 114 years of oppressions, but the answer is really 134. You have to add on 20 years for the second Philistine oppression. Now, probably the reason they neglected it is because all the oppressions are in the book of Judges except for the last one, which is in the book of Samuel. Okay, so they didn't realize that the oppressions were falling in the book of Samuel too. All right, so we have Eli here, 40 years. 40 years, okay. And Samuel was born during Eli's time. Eli was the judge, not Samuel. Samuel got a word from the Lord, but Samuel was confirmed as a what? A prophet, not a judge. Okay. At the end of Eli's life, his 2 sons went to war with the Philistines. They lost, and the Philistines took over. Okay, they took the ark for 7 months, and then the Philistine were, in terms of the ark was in a certain place for 20 years. But at the end of that 20 years, the people came to Samuel and they wanted, and they were complaining about being oppressed by the Philistines. So Samuel told them what to do. He said, "Get rid of your false gods and your idols, and I will pray for you." Okay. The Philistines were defeated. A Philistine victory followed by 20 years followed by a Philistine defeat, and they get rid of their idols. That's the end of another oppression. And then Samuel is confirmed as a judge. Or then he is judge, the official judge over Israel. Okay? So we have to include this 20 years. Now if you look in the pink here, okay, if you look at this pink, this pink, this pink, see this dotted line here? Okay? It says 390 years of sin right above the pink. Alright, ending here with the first year of Hezekiah. Okay, if you add up all the pink when Israel was in sin, it's 390 years. Okay, if you leave out this 20 years, then your number is only 370 years. It's too low. So that's why all the pink columns are here. And then Judah sinned for 40 years. So that's this pink over here. After Israel is exiled in 720, which is at the end of Israel here, you can see that where Hezekiah is. Then I have 3 periods of sin for Judah. One during the reign of Manasseh, one for the reign of Ammon, and 3 kings sinned for 13 years at the end of Judah's existence. Okay, and that adds up to 40 years. Okay, so we need the 20 years. We need to correct Ansi's error. We need to correct the 5-year error to get the Jubilees to synchronize. Okay, when you add up the 390 years of Israel's sin and the 40 years of Judah's sin, you get 430 years. Okay. Now, if you look at all of these black candles here, black lines here connecting in the pink, okay. If you can, and there's a gold one floating around in there eventually. The black ones are sabbatical years, and the gold one is a jubilee year. Okay. The 7th year is a land Sabbath. The jubilee year is a land Sabbath.
There's the gold year.
So all of those lines are land Sabbaths, when the land is supposed to be resting. Okay, if you count up all these black lines, including the gold ones, up to the exile of Judah, what do you get as the total number? It's the same sabbatical cycle as the 7 years of plenty and the 7 years of famine. You add up all those black lines, which represent sabbatical years or land Sabbaths that they didn't keep.
36 years.
Because they're falling in the 390 years of sin and the 40 years of sin. So if you add them all up, and I've drawn them all in there, they're not all necessarily perfectly to scale because it's only a schematic. You get 70 of them. 70 of them, okay? And then if you look right here after the last bit of pink here, you see 70-year exile. Actually, you'll see
This represents 70 years?
No, this is 70 years.
that's 70, yeah, down there.
Oh, down here.
That's a 70-year exile. Where it says exile, the other ones, one says fastings, anger, and Babylon, but I'm talking about the red one,
But it says
70-year exile. Okay, so they, according to the book of Chronicles, were in exile for 70 years because they didn't keep the land Sabbaths. So God added them up to 70, and then he exiled them for 70 years. Okay, and that's implied in Leviticus